With inflation a top worry for voters just weeks before the midterm elections, U.S. President Joe Biden announced Wednesday a plan to sell an additional 15 million barrels of crude oil from America's strategic reserve, and said more would be released if it was needed, all in an effort to dampen high gasoline prices. It comes 2 weeks after OPEC rankled Biden by siding with Russia and agreeing to a production cut that raised fears of a new spike in prices at U.S. pumps.
We're going to continue to stabilize markets and decrease the prices at a time when the actions of other countries have caused such volatility.
U.S. presidents have little control over oil prices, but with the country's massive gas consumption, the highest in the world, high prices can be political poison. Biden said domestic producers should be using record-breaking profits to invest in production. Prices are falling, he said, but not fast enough.
My message to the American energy companies is this: you should not be using your profits to buy back stock or for dividends. Not now, not while a war is raging.
Biden assured the nation's drillers that the government will swoop into the market as a buyer if prices plunge too low. He said his aim would be to replenish oil stocks when U.S. crude is around $70 a barrel, a level that would allow companies to profit while still being good for taxpayers. The U.S. benchmark was around $85 on Wednesday. The announcement underscores just how much world events like Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February have upended Biden's plan to move the country to a fossil fuel-free future. Biden said America must both invest in oil production and clean energy.
So I'm asking the Congress, pass a permitting bill to speed up the approval of all kinds of energy production, from wind to solar to clean hydrogen, because we need to get this moving now, quickly, now.
Oil companies and Republicans are pushing back on Biden's plan, saying the president is tapping the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or SPR, for political reasons and not because there is an actual emergency. America's strategic reserve is now at its lowest levels since 1984. It is more than half full with more than 400 million barrels of oil, enough, Biden said, for any emergency drawdowns.
As Americans tighten their budgets amid soaring inflation, big consumer companies like Nestle and Procter Gamble are weathering the storm and coming out on top. Nestle, which makes Nescafe coffee and Cheerios, posted its strongest 9-month sales growth in 14 years and raised its full-year guidance as it successfully passes higher costs on to shoppers. Similarly, Tide detergent maker P&G beat estimates for quarterly sales and profit, helped by price hikes on everything from Head & Shoulder shampoo to Gillette razors, even as a stronger dollar weighed on its revenue from overseas. Jessica DiNapoli is a U.S. consumer products correspondent for Reuters.
People are spending their money on everyday items. Some people are trading down into mid-tier products. The thing is they are still spending despite the continued price increases that have come from major food and consumer goods companies like Nestle and Procter Gamble.
Consumer companies, many of which thrived during COVID-19 lockdowns as people stockpiled their products, are once again emerging as winners in a time of global crisis, maintaining double-digit margins as people are forced to pay more for everyday products.
The pandemic seems to be over, but a lot of people are still working from home and they're spending less outside of the home, which is helping companies like Procter & Gamble and Nestle. Procter & Gamble makes toilet paper, so if you're at home more, you're using more toilet paper. And Nestle makes products like Coffee Mate and Nespresso. So if you want to have a coffee treat at home, you're buying products like that instead of going out to buy an $8 latte.
Despite the strong sales, some analysts worried price rises could soon push consumers too far, potentially pricing some products out of their reach. But DiNapoli says companies like P&G insist they're ready if things go south.
If we have a full-blown recession, a company like Procter & Gamble says that they're ready for consumer habits that change because they have a good, better, best product category so people can trade down into cheaper products. The other thing is in a recession, there's lower costs of gas, lower costs of freight, and that would help these companies so that they are in a good position still.
This used to be the east-west road in Nigeria's Rivers State. Now, people wade through it, balancing what's left of their belongings on their heads. Large areas of Rivers and 32 other states are being inundated by the worst flooding in over a decade. It has killed more than 600 people, displaced around 1.4 million, and destroyed large swaths of farmland. Experts like Hiba Baroud, an associate professor at Vanderbilt University, say all areas of society are being affected.
There are entire systems of not just households, but also critical infrastructure, social systems, economic systems, education, healthcare. All these systems are impacted at the same time. And so this will lead to devastating losses at various aspects of life.
Authorities are blaming the flooding on heavy rains and water release from a dam in Cameroon. Baroud also points to global warming and poor planning.
We have climate change that is making these hazards more intense, more frequent, but we can also do something about it to reduce our vulnerability by improving our protection system, by upgrading our infrastructure, improving our mitigation strategies, planning for resilience ahead of time.
She said a Nigerian dam meant to backstop Cameroon's was planned, but never completed. Nigeria has ranked among the worst in its readiness to adapt to climate change, according to the 2021 Notre Dame Global Adaptation Index.
Wall Street snapped its two-day winning streak Wednesday as a rise in Treasury yields sapped momentum from the current earnings season and outweighed a surge in shares of Netflix. The Dow ended 0.33% lower, the S&P 500 closed 0.2% lower, while the Nasdaq ended down 0.8%. The yield on the 10-year Treasury note touched its highest level in more than 14 years on Wednesday, as soft housing data did little to alter expectations that the Federal Reserve will remain aggressive in hiking interest rates. Jay Hatfield, Chief Investment Officer at ICAP ETF, said the rise in yields was enough to overshadow recent strong earnings.
Earnings are being released, which is usually good for the market. Earnings have been strong. 76% of companies have beaten so far. The big companies like Netflix have done well. But the problem is that the ultra hawkish Fed has driven other central banks overseas to raise rates as well, which is causing long rates to continue to increase. And that reduces the fair value of the stock market and is pressuring stocks, particularly today. That's what we had good earnings, but rising rates, we hit 410 on the 10-year. That really melted down the market.
Dow components Procter & Gamble and Travelers both rose after the companies posted better than expected quarterly profit, but Abbott Laboratories tumbled after reporting lower than expected growth in international sales of medical devices, hit by a strong dollar. Rate-sensitive mega-cap growth names such as Microsoft and Amazon.com fell amid rising yields, but shares of Netflix jumped 13%, after it said it attracted 2.4 million new subscribers worldwide in the third quarter, more than double the consensus forecast. After the close, Tesla reported third-quarter revenue that missed Wall Street estimates as the electric car maker led by billionaire Elon Musk delivered fewer vehicles than expected. Shares of Tesla slumped as much as 7% after the results.
In the drought-hit Anosi region of southern Madagascar, clean water has become a scarcity. The Mandrare River is dirty, contaminated by animals and people who wash themselves and their clothes. So villagers walk for hours a day to the nearest remaining water source. 55-year-old Florine Azefotsi can no longer make that trip and has resorted to buying water from others.
Our area was once fertile, but due to the lack of rain, it has ceased to be fertile, resulting in famine. The lack of rain is the cause of the lack of food in this community, but when we had regular rain, everyone went to the fields to cultivate, and we grew maize and cassava, and the village was very beautiful. But after the famine started, everyone left. No one is here.
The drought has ravaged fields too, leaving Azefotsi unsure of how to feed her children and grandchildren. They've been forced to survive on aid handouts and red cactus fruit, which is normally reserved for cattle feed. There has barely been any rain for at least 3 years in the region, aside from the floods caused by Cyclone Batsirai in February, which disrupted the lives of 187,000 people. Madagascar's climate change advisor, Rondriana Ravello Mamin, said that the impact of natural disasters in the country will intensify due to climate change. In 2019, the country was in the top 30 of the Global Climate Risk Index. It is also one of the world's poorest nations, with more than 75% of the population of Madagascar living in extreme poverty, which handicaps their ability to be resilient in the face of climate change, according to UNICEF.